This is Belgium, and right through the middle of it runs an invisible line. North of the line, people speak Dutch. South of it, people speak French. They vote for completely different political parties, watch different TV shows, and exist in two completely separate societies. And you can see it in every election. The divide is perfect, like someone drew it with a ruler. Well, the Romans did, 2,000 years ago. This is Via Belgica, a Roman military highway built around 50 BC. And it still controls so much of Belgium today. And I'm going to show you how a 2,000-year-old road split an entire country in half, and why it's never getting back together. Okay, so back around 50 BC, Julius Caesar had wrapped up his conquest of Gaul, which covers most of modern France and Belgium. And the Romans do what they always do. They laid down roads, lots of roads, straight lines across the countryside, connecting towns, forts, and the Rhine frontier. But there's one road that matters for our story. It's called Via Belgica. It went from the Channel coast at Boulogne all the way to Cologne, but the stretch through Belgium, from Bavay in the west to Tongeren in the east, is the core piece you're looking at here. This is a military highway. The Romans needed to move troops, messages, and equipment fast towards the east where the real fighting was happening. So this is where it gets interesting. The Romans spent the next 400 years basically camping out along this road. They built forts, towns, bathhouses, the whole Roman package. And everyone living along this road started speaking Latin. Not proper fancy Julius Caesar Latin, but vulgar Latin, the spoken Latin you'd hear at markets, military camps, and farms. And over time, that language became normal around the road and south of it. Meanwhile, north of the road, Rome didn't build the same dense networks of villas and towns on the sandy northern soils. The local communities kept speaking Germanic dialects. And there's a reason Romans picked this spot. South of the road, the soil is actually pretty good. You can grow crops, build farms, create Roman civilization. North of the road, sandy or swampy. You can farm it, but yields were lower, and Roman-style agriculture didn't spread as easily. The difference in land quality shaped the difference in settlement and language. So for 400 years, you've got this massive cultural border. South of Via Belgica, Latin-speaking, Roman towns, and good farmland. North of Via Belgica, Germanic languages, smaller settlements, and more open space. Now you might think, okay, but the Roman Empire fell like 1500 years ago. Surely this doesn't matter anymore. Well, think again. The shadow of Rome is long indeed. So the Western Roman Empire collapses in 476. The lights go out, everyone forgets how to build arches, the usual stereotypical Dark Ages stuff. The Franks take over. They're this Germanic tribe that actually adopted Latin. They create this big kingdom covering most of what's now France, Belgium, and Germany. And then that kingdom broke apart, shattering the map into a mosaic of hundreds of tiny squabbling territories that define medieval Europe. In what's now Belgium, you've got the County of Flanders, the Duchy of Brabant, the Prince-Bishopric of Liège. It's a mess. These places are constantly fighting, marrying each other, inheriting each other. It's like a really complicated board game. But check this out, because despite all this political chaos, the language border, it's still there. North of the old Roman road, people are speaking early versions of Dutch. South of it, people are speaking early versions of French. The political borders are moving all over the place, but the language line is basically frozen exactly where the Romans left it. A farmer in Flanders in 1300 is speaking something his Germanic ancestors would recognize. A farmer south of the line is speaking something that came from Latin. Though technically subjects of the same kingdom, they are both living in two distinct worlds. Now you'd think when someone finally does unite all these territories, they'd fix this whole language thing, right? Wrong. They're about to make it so much worse. In 1556, King Charles V, who owns like half of Europe, retires. And he splits his empire between his son and his brother. His son Philip gets Spain and the Low Countries, and his brother Ferdinand gets Austria and becomes Holy Roman Emperor. Now Philip II is not a chill guy. He brings in strict Catholic policies and tight control from Madrid. The northern provinces push back hard against both the religion and loss of local power. Long story short, the northern Netherlands rebels and breaks away. The southern Netherlands stays under Spanish control. That linguistic border, still there. Fast forward to 1714. Spain loses the War of Spanish Succession. Europe has a lot of wars with very long names. And Austria takes over Belgium. The Austrians are more relaxed than the Spanish, but here's what hasn't changed. The entire elite class, all the nobles, all the government officials, they all speak French. Doesn't matter if you're in the Dutch-speaking north or the French-speaking south. If you want to be fancy, you speak French. And this is super important. A rich merchant in Ghent, totally Dutch-speaking city, if he wants to do well in business and life, he learns French. He speaks French at parties. He writes letters in French. French is the language of power. But then 1795 rolls around, and France shows up with some opinions about monarchies. France straight up annexes Belgium, just takes it. And they're not subtle about the language thing. Everything is in French now. Official language, schools, government, French. If you're a Dutch speaker, tough luck. Learn French or get left behind. And this goes on for about 20 years. An entire generation of Belgian kids grow up with French as the only official language. Then Napoleon loses at Waterloo, which, fun fact, happens in Belgium. And all the European powers get together in Vienna to redraw the map. So their brilliant idea, let's stick Belgium together with the Netherlands and create the United Kingdom of the Netherlands. Maybe this will solve the problems. The Dutch king, William I, tries to make Dutch the official language in the southern provinces. But let's remember, the entire Belgian elite speaks French now and considers Dutch a peasant language. The Belgian aristocrats are furious. You want us to speak Dutch? That's what the farmers speak. This tension lasts exactly 15 years before everything explodes. In August of 1830, Belgium's revolt, and by October, they've kicked out the Dutch and declared independence. Europe's great powers looked at this and think, actually, a small neutral buffer state between France, Germany, and the Netherlands sounds pretty useful, so Belgium gets to exist. And they write a constitution, very progressive for the time. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, constitutional monarchy, the works. But here's the kicker. The entire constitution? Only in French. The official language of Belgium? French. The language used in courts, government, schools, the military, all French. Quick problem though, 60% of Belgians speak Dutch. And here's where the economic situation makes it way worse. In the 1800s, southern Belgium, the French-speaking part, Wallonia, was rich, like really rich. They've got coal, steel, and factories. This is prime industrial revolution territory. Wallonia is one of the richest regions in Europe now. Meanwhile, Flanders, the Dutch-speaking north, is poor, still mostly farming, and missing out on the coal deposits. Flemish people are moving to Wallonia to work in factories, and guess what language they have to learn to get hired? Yep, French. And it gets darker. Imagine you're a Dutch-speaking farmer in Flanders. You go to court. The trial is in French. You don't speak French. You're convicted of a crime you don't understand in a language you don't speak. This actually happened a lot, for decades. So around the 1840s, the Flemish movement starts up. They're fighting for basic linguistic rights. They want Dutch to be recognized as an official language. They want trials in Dutch. They want schools in Dutch. And slowly, painfully, they start winning. In 1898, Dutch becomes an official language alongside French. In 1930, Ghent University in the middle of Flanders finally starts teaching Dutch instead of French. But then this happens. The whole economic situation flips. Wallonia's coal mines started shutting down. Steel isn't profitable anymore. All those factories close. Meanwhile, Flanders started attracting tech companies and modern industries. By the 1970s, Flanders is rich and Wallonia is struggling. Now the Flemish are saying, why are we sending tax money to Wallonia? And the Walloons are saying, you owe us. We funded your schools when we were rich. And both sides are speaking completely different languages and watching completely different news channels. Things got so heated that in 1969, Flemish students forced the Catholic University of Leuven, one of the oldest universities in Europe, to split in two. The university was in Flemish territory but still teaching in French. After massive protests with the slogan Leuven Vlaams, they physically moved the entire French-speaking campus south of the border. They even split the historic library collection down the middle on odd and even catalog numbers. So by the 1960s, everyone's tired of fighting about exactly where the language border is. So in 1962 to 1963, they passed laws that officially, legally, and permanently fix it. Belgium gets divided into 4 regions. Flanders, the Dutch-speaking north, Wallonia, the French-speaking south, Brussels, officially bilingual but mostly French, and a tiny German-speaking area in the east. That German-speaking region, well, Belgium actually got that from Germany after World War I. The Treaty of Versailles in 1919 forced Germany to give up these territories as war reparations. About 60,000 people, mostly German speakers. Belgium held a consultation in 1920, but it wasn't a real vote. There was no secret ballot. If you wanted to stay German, you had to publicly register your name. So almost no one did because people feared the consequences. So the territory went to Belgium. The Germans retook it in World War II, and then Belgium got it back in 1945. So now Belgium has this weird fourth unofficial region where everyone speaks German, but it's a part of Wallonia. I know, confusing. They also create these language facility towns right along the border. These are towns where the minority language gets special protections. So if you're a French speaker living in a Flemish town near the border, you can get your government services in French. And then there's Brussels. Brussels is this weird French-speaking island in the middle of the Flemish territory. It's officially bilingual, but like 80% of people speak French. The Flemish are not thrilled about this. And when they fixed the border in 1963, they also restricted Brussels to 19 communes. But 6 surrounding communes right on the edge of Brussels and Flemish territory got special language facilities. So French-speaking kids can go to French schools even though they're technically in Flanders. Want to see something crazy? This is the 1963 language border from around Tongeren eastward, and it follows near the influence of the Roman road. We're talking about a line that's been relatively stable for centuries. But check out west. The modern border curves north, way north of where the Roman road ran. So here's what happened. Back around the year 900, the German Romance language border was further south. Germanic names with Romance endings show where the language mixing happened. But over the next 700 years, that border slowly crept north. By the 1600s and 1700s, it had shifted significantly. And the reason? Lille. Lille became France's massive textile powerhouse. Towns near the border got economically pulled into Lille's orbit. Places like Moucron and Comines, about 75,000 people total, were originally Flemish-speaking. But when all your business is with French-speaking Lille, you start speaking French. By 1668, parts of this region were officially transferred to France through a treaty. The language line had already moved north. So when Belgium fixed the border in 1963, they had to acknowledge reality. These western towns had been French-speaking for 300 years. The Roman road pattern had broken, pushed up to the west. The border fixing wasn't just about giving territory to Wallonia. There's a small region called Verstreek, with about 4,000 people. It's south of the border with the Netherlands, geographically part of the French-speaking Liege. But the majority there speak Flemish. So in 1963, Belgium transferred it to Flemish Limburg, essentially trading territories. Mouscron and Comines went to Wallonia, Verstreek went to Flanders. Both language minorities were guaranteed rights. It was messy, but it was an attempt at fairness. Eastward, the line's influence remained remarkably stable, but it took France's most powerful industrial city, sitting right on the border for 3 centuries, to shift it. So, did fixing the border in 1963 solve anything? Did Belgium finally become one unified country? Well, from 2018 to September of 2020, Belgium went 652 days without a federal government. Almost 2 years. The issue started in December 2018, following the collapse of the federal government. The Flemish parties want more regional power. The Walloon party wants to keep Belgium together. No one can agree. So they just don't have a government. For 652 days, almost 2 years, they break the world record for longest time without a government. And the Belgian people are just going to work, paying taxes, living their lives. Because the regional governments handle most of the stuff anyways. They don't really need a federal government at this point. Look at any Belgium election result from the past 30 years. The language border is always perfect. You can draw it with a ruler. Flanders votes for the Flemish parties. Wallonia votes for the Walloon parties. That Roman road? Still impacting every single election. Now, Belgium isn't alone in having linguistic borders. Quebec and Canada have language tensions. Catalonia wants independence from Spain. But Switzerland figured it out with 4 languages. The difference? Switzerland built their country around language diversity from the start. Belgium got forced together as a buffer state, and then tried to make everyone speak French. There's serious parties in Flanders that want independence. Would Brussels become its own city-state? Would Wallonia join France? Nobody knows. But if Belgium does split, I guarantee you that border will look very, very familiar. The Via Belgica is just one example. Roman roads defined borders across Europe that still exist today. The Romans built an entire empire that collapsed 1500 years ago, but the infrastructure, the cultural borders, those might last forever. Speaking of borders still causing problems, you should check out my video on the border splitting Ireland, because if you think Belgium's situation is weird, wait until you see what the tension around that one is. That video is on screen now, and if you've enjoyed this video, hit subscribe because we've got a lot more stories to map out. Thanks for watching.